Love the camera now.
Okay, I'm going to call to order the regular meeting of the Saginaw Township Community Schools Board of Education for Monday, December 14th. If we could start with roll call, please.
On mute. All right, if I can get off mute. David Jaffe,
Here.
Janine Coughlin,
Present.
Marianne Bird,
Here.
Jan Collison,
Uh-oh.
She's on mute.
Here.
Tony Duncan,
Here.
Mike Colucci,
Here.
Eric Smith here.
Well, the virtual setting roll call also allows us to test our mics. So it's like one of the preparatory steps. So we're ready to go. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Support.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Eric Smith, yes. Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Marianne Bird,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
David Jaffe.
Yes. Okay, first on the agenda is approval of our minutes of the regular meeting held on November 23rd, 2020. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Super mental.
Opening it up right now. Oh no, I'm sorry. I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, I make a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, November 23rd, 2020.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Marianne Bird,
Yes.
Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Eric Smith, yes. David Jaffe.
Yes. Okay, next is our treasurer's report.
This one I've got. I move that the.
Let's have our treasurer do it.
Oh, okay, go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I move that the Saginaw Township Board of Education approve the total checks, transfers, and wires as presented in the amount of $3,706,087.93. This amount covers invoices paid from November 2020 through December 9, 2020, and the November 2020 payroll, related taxes, ACH transfers for benefits, ACH reimbursement payments, and sales tax. And thank you to Janine for letting me use her glasses.
Where'd you go, Marianne?
Is there support?
Support.
Support.
Lots of support. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
David Jaffe,
Yes?
Eric Smith, yes. Janine Coughlin, Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Marianne Bird,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Jan Collison.
Yes.
Okay, next is approval of district credit card invoices.
Marianne, have that too, or do you want me to take that?
Tony, please.
All right, I move that the Board of Education approve the district credit card invoices in the amount of $8,258.76.
Support.
Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Eric Smith, yes. David Jaffe,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Marianne Bird.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, do we have any board committee reports this evening?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none. I see we have on our call Alan Kern, our principal at Mackinac High School, and he's going to talk to us for a few minutes about Mackinac and the current status with return to learn.
How you doing, everybody?
Hey, Alan.
Good, Alan, how are you?
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yes.
I'm broadcasting live here from my kitchen table.
All been there.
Yeah. So, just I guess some points that I wrote down here, some points of pride that we have going here for Mackinac. I'm very proud of what the teachers are doing as far as reaching out to students and continuing their communication logs, both for the academic side and then also for the social emotional. My teachers are utilizing Google Voice, email, phone calls, video chats. Some are even sending letters and trying to communicate with students all different ways. Also, we've been successful in getting essentially a Chromebook to every student who has wanted one. I believe at one point we had, I think it was 96 Chromebooks distributed, which basically is 75% or so of our population. So it was that was nice. Over the last 3 months, our Mackinac Market which is our free food and clothing pantry, has ran each month. This December event, we've been able to spend $2,000 on food and personal items, and that event is going to be open this coming Friday for our students and their immediate household. So it's good that we've still been able to do that through the generous donations of different organizations around the community. And then kind of looking forward, depending on what the board kind of votes on as far as if the 9/12 is going to return to school in January or not. We are playing around with different options of starting a tutoring program at Mackinac that would potentially start after the holiday break. And essentially it's voluntary for students, but we're looking at different options because many of my students are being less than productive. And so the opportunity would be essentially Monday through Thursday, 11 to 6:30, with rotating staff and bagged lunches available. Any questions so far? I think.
Mike might have one.
Yep.
Unmute. So it sounds like what you're saying is if we stay remote through January, as the superintendent recommended, you would suggest that Mackinac implement this tutoring program.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, if we come back, then it would be unnecessary. And if, just as an example, we do end up coming back and then later on go to remote, or we flip-flop moving forward in the second semester, we would have this program to fall back on and tailor it a little bit if need to.
So, Alan, when you say less than productive, does that mean 50% of your students are do you feel 50% of them are engaged, less than 50%?
So I guess the first thing to kind of understand is what is the goal of production. And essentially what we tell our students is 25 hours a week to 30 hours a week is what they should be meeting. And I would say there is probably only 10% of my population who is currently meeting that expectation. And I believe somewhere around, I don't know, probably 75, maybe 67, somewhere between 60 and 75% of my students are below 10 hours a week. So it's a very concerning situation. Some of that is choices that they've made, and some of those are choices that are out of their hands. As an example, some of the students have to babysit younger siblings. I know there was a young lady I was talking to last week. She has 3 younger siblings, and her mom is sick. And so she, as an 18-year-old young lady is essentially the step-in mother for 3 elementary students, or siblings, I should say. And then some students lack some skills to be able to continue on the program unassisted. Other students may be less than motivated, and that's just part of their academic history. They need somebody standing behind them, kind of poking them forward. And some people have just, rather than continue with their work, essentially stopped and went and got jobs. So there's a variety of different reasons. I can't say everybody is all of one or another. It's a mismatch of 100 different reasons. Some are valid, some are invalid, some are self-imposed, some are imposed based on their scenarios, you know. So I'm hoping the tutoring program, if we're able to implement a good version of it, will help at least give the students more opportunities to try and, you know, reach some of their goals. Any questions so far?
How's your
If I can
enrollment-
go ahead, Marianne.
How's your enrollment, Alan?
I don't know the exact number right now, but I think it's somewhere around like 135, 130, which is about average for this time of year.
Mhm.
We, believe it or not, we actually enrolled more students between the August and September enrollment period than I have in 2 years. And so I think we beat our enrollment by about 10 or 15.
I think a lot of that's due to your efforts and the people that you have working with you, Mr. Bronze, and all the times I've seen you at Friday Night Live and all of the different things that you. So that's a really talk about a point of pride, especially in these times.
I think it's good. Somersaults or cartwheels. What was it out front of school that you did?
Yeah, it's somersaults.
Uh-huh.
I'm a born gymnast.
I can't do that.
Love it.
One of the points I wanted to remind the board of is in the stay-at-home order, shutdown order, 912 is not able to meet in person, as you recall. However, there are exceptions for English language learners, special education students, and students that are at risk of failing their coursework. And so Alan and I have had a number of conversations that even though his students are 10th through 12th grade, they do meet that exception under the MDHHS order that would allow him to bring kids in. So he's quite motivated to do so, and is currently working out some logistics with his staff to figure out how best to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's powerful to say a statistic like this. This is my 10th year here at Mackinac, so I've had 9 graduating classes so far. I've never graduated less than 30 kids in a school year. Usually it's up between 40 and 50. We've had a few years where we were over 60. This year, our current projection is less than 10. That is based on the amount of work students accomplished last semester during the shutdown, and then this semester during all the turmoil. So if you just think about that, I've never graduated in my tenure less than 30 kids. That was my worst year, 30 kids. And this year, if we get above 10, the way that current things are projecting, that is going to be a significant victory. So another reason why I think this tutoring program is important.
Alan, when you're talking about a tutoring program, are you looking at, would it just be a couple students at a time? Is that what you're looking at?
So that's a great question, Jan. I don't have I haven't finalized all the details, but what I can tell you is essentially the skeleton of the model is I would like to have 2 classroom staff members, and the times would be open from essentially 11 o'clock to 4:15 would be my daytime shift, and then I would also run an evening shift, which would be essentially 4 to 6:30.
Okay.
So, and it would be open for any student, both virtual and face-to-face, where they can come and get help, and it's voluntary. So
And this,
they could come for an hour, they could come for 3 hours, and I don't anticipate having more than probably 15 or 20 kids there. And so we'll spread them out as best we can with our 2 staff members, and we have large rooms, so that shouldn't be difficult to accommodate.
okay, so do you have 2 staff members that have said that they will do this?
Specifically, no.
Okay.
Those are some of the logistics Alan's working on this week with his staff.
Okay.
I did put together a sample schedule of everything and sent that off to the union rep at Mackinac, and we were in discussions with it earlier today, and he had some feedback, and we kind of worked through that a little bit. So depending on how the board votes tonight on whether or not we are going to be remote or not in January, will determine what I do tomorrow on sending out the beginnings of that plan or not.
Okay.
So
Ellen, do you have any other comments or material to present before more questions?
no, I'm kind of tapped out on agenda points. I'm very open to answering any questions that anyone would have.
Other questions for Alan? Janine?
Yes, Alan. Oh, go ahead, Janine.
This is just about the Mackinac market. I
Yes,
know
ma'am.
it'd be dangerous about that, but if somebody wanted to contribute, or you're looking for items, or and when do you take those types of donations?
Constantly.
Okay.
So there is usually either myself or my secretary, Miss Mead, in the office, almost always between like 9 and 3, Monday through Friday. So, I mean, it'd be best for someone to call ahead, but we're basically around keeping the office open 5 days a week. We do have several, well, not several. It is not uncommon to have people drop donations off. You know, usually it's clothes after they go through their closet and getting rid of things that they no longer wear, which is wonderful. But honestly, the always the biggest need is funds to buy food, because you can have a coat, you can have a shirt, you can have pants, and whether you choose to or not to, you can still rewear those clothes without washing. You can only eat food once. So food is by far the biggest need, and the funds to procure it. I'm able to get it at a pretty decent price. It's just a matter of having the funds to supply enough.
So gift cards would probably not be a bad idea then?
Gift cards is essentially the currency I prefer,
Yeah.
because that way I don't have to deal with money.
Right.
I have a wonderful, I'll call her a wonderful young lady. She'll get complimented by that. And she's worked with me with an organization in the community, and they donated $2,000 last year. And I am hoping that I will be able to get their grant again in the 2020 calendar year, because their grant donations work on calendar years. So we'll see how it works, you know.
Eric, do you have a question?
Yeah, at the beginning of your presentation, Alan, you mentioned, or maybe it was a little after the beginning, but you mentioned the situation with students having a hard time, I don't know if with retention, for a lack of a better word, of students due to the various reasons that you listed. In your outreach, do you guys have any kind of accommodations in mind to address some of those reasons kids are missing? You seem to have a pretty good grasp on why the kids are missing. Are there any ideas or anything floating around for any type of accommodations? And again, it's a very open-ended question. I'm not leading one way or the other.
Right.
I know for every action, there's a cost. So
when you say accommodations, sir, what do you, I guess, referring to?
Accommodations or mitigations, like for
How to address their deficits, basically, or barriers?
Yeah, to address the bear, for instance, if somebody's got a job in the morning, is there an alternate schedule that could be available? And again, I know there's things that have to be put in place to make that kind of thing happen, but it all starts with an idea, I guess, is where I'm coming from.
I will say that the cartoon character that my program would best resemble is Gumby, as far as flexibility. We are very flexible in all kinds of different circumstances and scenarios. For example, if little Johnny decided they need to get a job, while I would strongly recommend they don't work during school hours, because that's when teachers are available to help them. If they so choose, they're 18 and they so choose to work during school, there's not a whole lot I can do to prevent it. But as long as they're getting their hours in, they can do their hours and their work on Edgenuity 24/7. So it's not like I shut the program down at 4 o'clock. You know, they can continue to do their stuff. Believe it or not, between the midnight and 5 a.m. time period is actually a fairly popular time for my student population to work. I don't know why, but so it's available. There's a lot of flexibility. Now I will tell them, because a lot of times they have to get work permits, and I'll write on the work permit, not allowed to work during these school hours. And some employers follow that and some don't. But we are the, I guess I'm biased, obviously, because I'm the principal of the program, but there's not a lot of programs that are as flexible as we are. There's all kinds of different accommodations and ways we try and knock down barriers. I mean, right now the STARS bus is free due to the pandemic and everything like that, but we pay for STARS bus passes. But not everybody wants to ride public transportation. And so if you're handing a pass to somebody and say, all you got to do is use this pass to get to school, but they say, I refuse that pass, then
you can lead a horse to water. Yeah.
Yep. You're the second gentleman that said that to me today. Yep. So, but I am very proud of my staff on how they've just continued, just trudging through one way or the other. You know, you don't always get all these wonderful and glorious results every time you have an output. Our program is different like that because we have to continue to grind. You got to grind to get this kid to make progress. And when they make progress, it's a wonderful and great thing. But at a traditional school, you know, 3/4 or 80% of your students, the result's going to be a lot more positive based on the amount of input. You know, you're going to get more output based on the same amount. Us, our input is like, and our output might be. So I'm very proud that my teachers have continued to grind and reach out. And quite honestly, some students and parents, they're sick of us. They're like, you just called us a day ago or 2 days ago. It's like, yeah, but you know, Junior told me he was going to do this and they didn't. So I'm following up, you know? So I'm very proud of my staff by doing that. I have a wonderful staff. I really do. I don't think the program would be anywhere without the kind of staff I have. And that's not to say I don't make them mad sometimes and they don't make me mad sometimes, but it's a wonderful balance.
Other questions for Alan? Well, Alan, I think I can speak for the board when I say that we are incredibly proud of both you and your staff and the work that you're doing. These are incredibly difficult times, and we thank you and your staff for all of your hard work on behalf of your students. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. We will continue the fight.
Thank you for being with us tonight, too. We appreciate it.
No problem. Hey, how do you guys like my cuckoo clock? Last time Bruce was on here, he made fun of my cuckoo clock.
It wins the award for backdrop of the night so far.
Yes,
All right.
really great. I like it.
Well, I don't know, Tony had horses earlier, so.
I know, but that's real. That's not a computer generated backdrop. It's a real thing.
There was an artisan that made that somewhere.
Give it a 32, it's got a good beat, but you can't dance to it. Nobody's gonna know what that's from.
All right.
Alan, thank you.
All right. Take care, guys. I'm going to sign off.
Thanks, Alan. Appreciate it.
Okay, we've reached the point of our agenda where the first of two opportunities for public comment. As is the case when we meet virtually, comments are submitted on a form available at the STCS website. So far tonight, we've got 7 comments, although one's a duplicate. Several are rather lengthy. So if anyone has the spreadsheet pulled up, it was emailed to everybody's account. If anyone hasn't pulled up, I thought maybe we could rotate through and read the comments so that everybody gets to hear all of our voices. We'll take the first one and then we can just rotate through until we get through them. And if you don't have the spreadsheet up, no problem. We'll go back to the top. The first comment comes from an anonymous community member at 2816 Churchill. The comment is, what is being done to address the students that are failing? Also, what about exams? And will all students and staff be required to get the vaccine before returning to school? I hope that these issues are being carefully thought about. And that's the comment. Just sort of going around the loop. Janine, do you have the spreadsheet open?
I do.
You want to take the next comment?
Sure. This is from Michelle Drapp at 4453 Meadow Creek Court. And this is a little bit of a lengthy one. 3 bullet points. The first one is, I'm very perplexed why we are debating the return to school of our students. My understanding is that the role of the school board is to make decisions to best serve students in our community. You have already done this by offering 2 options to our district, face-to-face and virtual. There should be no, maybe I need my bigger glasses. There should be no challenge on what parents decide for their children. Beyond that, it seems that your role would be to provide a good platform of learning for virtual students and foster a safe environment at school to allow return face-to-face students. So instead of spreading so much precious time, spending so much precious time debating the return, perhaps working what is needed to make that return happen. The second bullet point is, at one meeting, it was mentioned that face-to-face was a challenge due to lack of staff and subs. Has it been considered to communicate that to all parents in the district, including the requirements, and specifying that is a factor prohibiting face-to-face instruction? Perhaps some parents who are out of work currently, or those with flexible hours, have the necessary credentials and would be willing to assist to get their students back on the class. Third bullet point, the last on my list is sports. Please do not take sports away from the kids. They need it desperately. They are feeling trapped. They are feeling stuck primarily in a house in front of a computer. They have energy that they need to expel and need to be involved in something. They need to feel part of some type of social system. And if it is sports, that is great. Studies show that participating in sports helps to reduce depression and anxiety, which will be very beneficial to the students. Further, parents sign release forms to their children to participate in sports. We give them our consent and we assume the liability for our athletes. This is one thing that many of us look forward to. If there's anything you can do to at least give them that, please do, especially for our students.
Right. The next comment is a duplicate of the first one, so we can skip that one. Michael, you got your spreadsheet open?
I do.
Can you take the next one?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I was muted or not. Stacy Cole, it's okay, I'm not going to read the address because it's already documented. Dear board members, when Governor Whitmer allows high schools to meet face-to-face, I would like to know how committed the board district is in getting our kids back to face-to-face instruction 5 days per week. I am concerned after getting the email regarding our next semester that we as a district are not committed to this. If we have permission to do so, are you 100% committed to keeping our kids in school 5 days per week? In regards to this, we already know, 1, experts feel schools should be open. 2, we have heard from Mr. Martin that minimal cases were from face-to-face learning when we were in school. We have also heard from our principal, Mr. Blaine, that he feels safe in his school and students are following protocols appropriately. 3, we know the detrimental effects of 100% online learning physically and emotionally, with the amount of depression and anxiety increasing in this age group, particularly now when sports and clubs have been postponed as well. There is no outlet at all for these students. You are giving parents a choice. If I, as a parent, choose face-to-face, I am expecting commitment on your end in doing this on your end, period. In doing so, I feel you need to be much more clear in the decisions the parents make for next semester. I feel you trust that if any parent has even the slightest reservation in returning, they need to choose virtual since you are 100% committed to face-to-face learning 5 days per week, unless it is determined from higher up that we cannot. You give us a choice, but it is time for the district to honor parents that choose face-to-face when cleared by the government. I know that everyone has their own opinion on this situation and has a right to it. However, if there are no restrictions from higher up, it's not your role to impose those opinions on others that elected you to office. You are there to represent the people. If a percentage of parents want to return to 5-day, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with the scrolling on my computer.
Do we need to finish it?
Yes, please.
If a percentage of parents want to return to 5 day per week face-to-face learning, your role is to ensure all measures are put in place and continue with this unless told differently from the governor. Those parents who have any reservations whatsoever, even in the slightest, have a choice to continue with virtual learning. Thanks for your consideration.
Tony, why don't you do the next one too, as long as you got it open?
Yep, sure. Jamie Barnes, 5692 Blackberry Drive. Please reopen the school as planned. My children are expected to be self-sufficient learners as if they were independent college students, and they are in middle and elementary school. They are mentally and emotionally losing interest in school. As a parent, there are only so much support we can offer to guide them during this extended online learning phase.
Eric, do you have the spreadsheet open?
I do.
Want to take the last one?
Sure. From Amy Dreffs, not sure where the, 4626 Wintergreen Drive. Wintergreen Drive North, Saginaw, Michigan. And her comment reads, please get our children back in the classroom for face-to-face learning. I would like to see them return 5 days a week when they return in January. I think the schools in the district have done a great job keeping our kids and teachers safe, as there haven't been any major outbreaks in the schools. These kids need to be in school full time, as they need to be able to interact with their teachers and fellow peers. The students need the social interaction as much as the educational in-person learning. If parents don't want to send their kids to school, they have made the choice in choosing virtual. but the rest who choose face-to-face really do want our kids in school. And I truly believe it can be done safely with all the precautions the schools have made.
And thanks everyone for helping to read those comments. We have another public comment period at the end of the meeting, but that's what we have so far. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Martin for the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. My bi-weekly COVID update, some bullet points I wanted to bring the board up to speed on. First of all, this first one isn't necessarily COVID related, but my employment contract requires me to remind the board in writing prior to January 1st of each year of the board's opportunity to extend my contract for an additional year prior to April 30th, or to not extend our agreement and to advise me of the same. I will send you this reminder in writing later this week to meet that January 1st deadline. Second item, back to COVID updates. We opened our bids last Monday for our third-party commercial cleaning update. There were 7 companies in total that submitted bids. One was a local company. The bids ranged from $795,000 a year to $1.18 million per year for each year of a 3-year contract. This option, after studying that, in my opinion, is totally cost prohibitive. I stated all along that we would go down this route and see where it took us and see what the numbers look like. And depending on how the numbers turned out, there would either be a recommendation or not. In my opinion, roughly $1 million a year for an evening custodial team is cost prohibitive. I would rather enter into negotiations with our custodial union right after the holidays and explore ways to retain our current employees and to attract additional candidates to add to our team. When we had students in session, we were able to manage the cleaning process at a relatively minimal but safe level. Now that the students are not in the building, obviously, we're able to stay on top of that very easily and have been able to tackle some new projects and some things that we've been wanting to get addressed for quite a while. In regard to athletics, the MHSAA winter guidelines were paused again in light of last week's Department of Health and Human Services extension of the shutdown order. Therefore, there has not been any activity in those winter sports at this time. Dates for the MHSAA girls swim, volleyball, and football playoffs and championships are still undecided. Those were originally pushed back to wrap around the Christmas Day, a few days before and a few days after. Those obviously have been shut down. The MHSAA Executive Council continues to meet weekly and is currently lobbying the governor's office for clearance to resume activities, at least in order to close out the fall season so that we can put a wrap on the fall season and then after that deal with how do we want to manage the winter sports season. So at this point, everything's in a holding pattern due to the MDHHS order. We are not, none of the Saginaw Township athletic activities are happening in any form at this time unless kids are working out, conditioning on their own. The instructional plan during remote learning, as a reminder, in Heritage, we're running all of our classes daily for 40 minutes each. There's a 15-minute break in between. Lunch period is scheduled as usual. And during that 15-minute break, teachers are using the first 10 minutes of that 15-minute break in between each class period to reach out to their Edgenuity kids. Opening test, taking attendance, answering questions, things like that. At White Pine, they're using the same block schedule as they did in September. That involves 2 core classes a day for 2 hours each, with 1 elective a day for 2 hours, and then the opposite classes and another elective are the following day. Elementary classes are trying to conduct as close to a normal school day as possible In speaking to the elementary principals, they said things appear to be going quite smoothly and are going well. Mackinac obviously is our other school, and Mr. Kern just presented on that. They're using their regular remote instruction as they do, and kids work at their own pace. And again, as Alan shared, there are significant concerns about students that have checked out from the educational process. As I mentioned, there are some exemptions to the law in the MDHHS order that would allow him to bring special populations in, and he's currently working out some things with his staff. We ran a parent RSVP survey to identify the learning mode for the second semester. That survey went out early last week. It's currently open and it closes this Wednesday, day after tomorrow. And the reason we picked this Wednesday is because we had to backwards plan from the opening of the second semester and figure out each of those benchmarks to allow time for principals and counselors to revise their master schedules, their student schedules, and to identify staffing needs. If we have major shifts, we're going to need to pull some teachers out of face-to-face and assign them online, or pull them out of online and assign face-to-face. So that should allow us plenty of time to do that. As of Friday evening, we had nearly 400 of those surveys returned. Unfortunately, many of which requested to remain with their current choice, which we asked, they only fill it out if they need to change, but so we're currently sorting through those and figuring out which ones really need to change and which ones are simply verifying what they're currently doing. In regard to the upcoming learning plan, as we always make a focal point of our board meetings, several points I'd like to make. First of all, as you all know and have been following in the news, the Saginaw region is one of the hot spots in the state of Michigan. In fact, last Monday, under the governor's MDHHS shutdown speech, he specifically mentioned Saginaw County in the middle of that. Since October 1st, we've seen 73% of our total Saginaw County cases. Since last March, 73% of the cases have come since October 1st. Our testing positivity rate as of tonight is now 16.5%. So that came down a little bit from the 19.2 of Thursday. Our deaths in Saginaw County, 56% of the total deaths of COVID have come since October 1st. And our hospital capacity at the end of last week was 96%. So I know they're working at a very strained capacity. And again, some of these numbers from Saginaw County are some of the highest we've seen since COVID introduced itself. In the next 3 weeks, we'll be experiencing two of the most social holidays of the year, obviously Christmas and New Year's Eve, which typically involve family gatherings and public celebrations. I'm certain we're going to see an awful lot of warnings from public health officials, but as we've seen with other holidays, we see varying degrees of adherence to those warnings. The weeks of January 4th, that first week back, and January 11th will be very critical in reflecting the impact of those two major holidays on the Saginaw area's COVID situation, either reflecting positively if the impact is minimal from those holidays, or negatively if we see a corresponding spike in cases. That spike should probably hit about the time we're coming back, scheduled to come back. After careful study, conversation with our administrative team, conversation with the STEA leadership, the ISD superintendents, and the Saginaw County Health Department, in my judgment, it is prudent to continue our remote structure of learning for face-to-face students through the end of the first semester, which is Friday, January 22nd, to give us time to study the impact of these two major holidays. So in essence, I'm asking for a couple of weeks that I think it would be prudent for our kids to remain in remote rather than schedule them to come back on January 4th and then quite possibly be sending them home and closing the district a few days later when that Christmas and New Year's Eve spike potentially may hit. I also recommend that we continue bringing students into our buildings who have special needs or special circumstances for individual or small group interactions. This will not only allow us to provide targeted instruction to those students, but to potentially interact with students that are struggling with some of these social and emotional concerns due to that disconnect with peers and staff that we are very concerned about. Our social workers and counselors at all of our levels have been doing a great job analyzing where our kids are that are really struggling and reaching out to them. Our teachers are continuing their two-way interactions with their kids. And as I've shared with you, those two-way interactions have to be more than just simply how you doing, how'd your weekend go. They need to be related to learning and be substantial. So we're doing an awful lot of connecting with kids. I know it's not the same as having kids in the buildings by any stretch of the imagination, but I am proud of our social workers and counselors for really doing a great job staying on top of those. I also am recommending that we move our committee of the whole meeting from Monday, January 11th, as is currently scheduled. If we move that back a week to Tuesday, January 19th, to avoid Monday, the 18th, which is Martin Luther King holiday, that will give us an extra week of essential data and understanding of the status of the pandemic at that time. That evening, we would then make a decision on an appropriate mode of instruction for our face-to-face students who would begin the second semester Tuesday, January 26th. If we wait until our regular meeting on January 25th, that doesn't give us time, obviously, to communicate with families and staff for the next day's start of the semester. So again, I recommend we move from Monday, January 11th to Tuesday, January 19th. That again buys us an extra week. We see what that, if there has been a spike from Christmas and New Year's Eve, get a handle on what's happening in the Saginaw region. And then on January the 19th, we would make a decision on what we want to do with our face-to-face kids, whether they come back to the building on that opening day of second semester, or whether we start in remote fashion, or the other option is to start in a hybrid with the blue-green model like we had been. So in short, the unpredictable nature of this pandemic is making it extremely difficult to forecast where our region's health will be next week, let alone 6 weeks from today for the opening day of second semester. I just think there are too many variables there with two major holidays that could either send this in one direction or another. And it would not be prudent for us to make a decision on the start of second semester tonight when there's so many things that could change between now and then. So that is my COVID update and my recommendation. We'll get to the formal part of that here in just a few minutes, but wondering if there are thoughts, comments, concerns before we move on to the next item on the agenda.
Bruce, I have a quick question for you. Can you review a little bit what happened with childcare in the buildings for teachers in September and why that didn't work, and whether that might be an option in January if we continue the remote mode?
Yes, we offered childcare, and we were very clear that it literally was babysitting. It was not a classroom situation with a lot of instruction. And we had varying degrees of participation. We used everyone from instructional aides to paraprofessionals to security guards that were watching kids. Since the parents kept their kids at their building where they worked, we had a range of students from developmental kindergarten all the way through high school. So out of the 5 kids sitting in the Hemeter cafeteria, for instance, they were of all ranges, sizes, shapes, and abilities. We saw an initial pretty good participation with that. Then as time went on, I think there was a little bit of I don't know if disappointment's the word, that they were hoping it would be a lot more instructional than it truly was. And so we saw a few people find other options for their kids with grandparents or some other things. So in the end, it really worked well for those people that were completely relying on that in order to come back to the classroom. It was not a home run by any means, but it served a purpose for those folks who needed that.
Is there a possibility of, if remote instruction should continue, of reinstituting that program or no?
Right now, the staff has the option of working from home or from the classroom. And again, that's in part due to the MIOSHA order from late October about recommending folks work from home at all costs unless it's unfeasible for them to work from home. So we're seeing, in talking to the principals, we're seeing about a 50-50 split in their staff. Some are enjoying for instance, over this past month, we've replaced almost every Promethean board in the district with the new active panels that you folks approved a couple of months ago using some of the federal stimulus money. So a lot of folks are in because of connectivity issues with the internet or the teaching tools that are available and accessible to them to the classroom. Other folks are working from home because they have just as much as what they need at home. So we're keeping an eye on that. That is certainly a possibility for January in remote. I have not had a request for that from staff because they seem to be working it out with their families, either from working from home or working from school. But we're certainly open to it. We have those same staff members that we are redeploying in other areas to support our plan. But we could certainly pull them off and bring them back into a babysitting situation if necessary.
Thank you.
The MIOSHA order continues, right? It doesn't expire right away.
That continues actually until the beginning of April.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was quite extensive.
So there's no compelling teachers to teach at school. Because whether it's a good idea or not, and I guess we've learned. I think what we're doing right now in terms of trusting teachers to make the best decision about where they're able to teach seems to be working reasonably well.
And our teachers, or our principals, I'm sorry, are dropping in a lot into their Google Classrooms and doing it's time for their mid-year observations. And so they're in and out of a lot of those classrooms and keeping an eye on things and having conversations with teachers if necessary. But so far, it's going rather well.
At the last session, and I'm probably going to bring this up a lot because I'd like to see something happen, especially given that the kids have been out of school since last March when that happened, and then starting this school year with what I call the yo-yo effect is some form of coordinated summer academy. And I know we heard bits and pieces from Jamie at last month's meeting, but I really like the concept of having not summer school, but an opportunity for our students who are not getting perhaps what they need right now or additional assistance, and not have it all just be different pockets of group because they fall under this category, they fall under that category. But if there could be a coordinated effort of learning and enrichment and perhaps athletics, I don't know. And I talked with a parent the other day, and they had indicated that I can't remember what state's doing it, but they're doing like a night school, because I think she said there was a teacher in the district who said that so many parents are coming home after work, and then they're putting in 3 or 4 hours a night with their children. And I mean, you know, it's trying to help them with things that perhaps are not the easiest for them, and they're not the experts. But I remember it was a TV show that was called Night Court, because there was such a backlog of cases during the day that they have a night court. And I'm just wondering if there's a possibility or flexibility to have some type of option. I don't know whether people would look at that and say, I don't know, but I just think that there has to be a way to help out these parents who are working now, and that doesn't mean that it couldn't be an enjoyable experience, but I really think that we need to be looking at summer And I think one of the things that I've discovered in my own year with teaching is I was asked to teach 2 classes in the winter term, and they are both face to face. And I think they're at a waiting list. And so I find that really interesting that the quicker, I know we're depending on staff and things, but I think the quicker that we can get kids back safely, that could be the option. And one of the things that was kind of confusing was that every month, and it's helpful. It's written down that every month we have to reaffirm. And I'm not sure that the public knows all that every month we have to take a different vote. And I think perhaps if they knew that we're not just, acting like a yo-yo that, oh, we're going to change this now. I think it's important for the public to understand that we have to reconfirm what the plan is. And I think that the fact that I don't think we've even seen the Thanksgiving surge. And I work in a retail position, and I know that people are not canceling very many things at all. So, and that we can't control. So I'm just thinking that whatever comes out, like you mentioned, to make a plan tonight for who knows what will happen. The vaccine they're looking at spring for the rest of the country, and that's an awful long time to have to wait for that. But you obviously have other people who are in much dire straits that do need that. But I'm gonna kind of keep pushing for some type of a summer something that we can do, and work with staff that might be interested. And goodness knows, who knows where the numbers might be at a point where it is safe, to offer some instruction. I just think that's really important. And I know my students would like to have, they'd like to be back in the classroom, but I want them back safely.
Marianne, I think you raised an excellent point about the board's responsibility to look at the return to learn plan on a monthly basis, and the fact that it's mandated in state law currently that this be reevaluated on a monthly basis. And that's why we're taking it up at every meeting, because it may not be widely known in the community that it's a state requirement, and it's not like we're choosing every month to just have a debate anew about this.
Yes, I think people perhaps thought that there was a real disconnect. Like, what are you doing now? You just decided this, and now 4 weeks later you're going to do that, and so I think that's helpful for people to know. And I'm not sure if that's reflected on the website, but that might be something that could be helpful, for our families and for our whole community.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Yep.
Other questions, Janine, for Bruce about, and then Jan?
Yeah, well, actually, at one of the meetings a couple months ago, I said I'm the person swimming upstream. And Bruce, I completely respect what you said about returning January 2nd makes a lot of sense. It does. I'm going to have a hard time though keeping our kids again out of school in January. Social emotional, we haven't covered it. Covenant had in their pediatric unit suicide attempts the end of July that measured the whole 2019. It's a big deal. And we're not talking enough about social emotional. We're not talking enough about suicide. We're not talking enough about what's going on in our kids' minds. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to be that weird board member. So based on that, I guess I would like to talk a little bit more about those things. First, I'd like to have a discussion maybe with you tomorrow. I had somebody talking about some possible grant money that we could possibly talk about some of these things. And even if it's just giving our teachers some more tools to identify things with their students. I'd like to, maybe you're already doing that, but I'd like to maybe connect you with somebody in the community, Bruce. That's my first point. My second point, since we don't have a place really to do More. I just want to let Bruce and the board know that I did receive quite a few emails, correspondence for students wanting to return to athletics if they choose once the Michigan High School Athletic Association says it's good to go. So I did forward those to Mary, and she will be putting those in a folder. This just happened today. So she'll be putting those in a folder and sending them out to all of you. But I wanted to give you a heads up on that as well. So that is my comment for this evening. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Jan, question for Bruce?
Yes, Bruce, as far as once we are done with break, have you given thought, or what were your reasons for not thinking about going back to the hybrid where we had the green and the blue days? Did you feel that the numbers were still too high?
In anticipation of January, you mean?
Right.
After the, yeah. Yes, I think it's.
I'm talking January 4th or January 22nd, Jan.
I'm talking January 4th.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So my biggest concern is the unpredictability of Christmas and New Year's. If this were late August and we had September, October in front of us with no holidays, no, it's, as you remember, that's a pretty long straight shot through the days in school. This has such a wildly unpredictable two holidays, not just one like Thanksgiving, but two very popular social holidays. My fear is bringing people back in a blue-green mode, and then a few days into it, a week into it, we end up closing and sending everyone remote. I just think the predictability of the remote instruction, having our kids, for instance, our middle school, high school kids in class every day, high school especially, having all 7 classes all day, with their teachers in a remote fashion, we actually, I feel like we've that's the unfortunate give and take. We lose an awful lot from a social emotional standpoint having our kids in remote, and quite frankly, I think we pick up a lot instructionally in a remote setting as opposed to the hybrid. And I've talked to an awful lot of teachers at the high school and administrators at the high school that are kind of shy to say it, but say, holy cow, in this remote setting, we're actually making we're getting an awful lot of ground in our scope and sequence in our curriculum because we're getting in a rhythm, we're getting in a groove. It's not that every other day piece where I'm trying hard to figure out an instructional model that has integrity on that off day. Where I see meaning, virtually, I see my kids Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday in third hour, and we're really moving, we're really making progress. So those two are the biggest reasons. It's the unpredictability of Christmas and New Year, and it's the fact that we're making an awful lot of progress right now in our remote model. However, the trade-off, as I mentioned, is that whole social emotional piece that we've got kids sitting in their bedroom, from Monday to Friday without much interaction and friends over and things like that. It's a pretty ugly trade-off. So there isn't, as you know, this whole process, there isn't a best fit that meets all of those needs.
Okay.
Bruce, why don't you do your report on two-way interaction, and then we can move into the recommendation and continue the discussion there.
Okay, this is a piece that we're required by the state every month. You'll notice in the packet the two-way interaction percentages. Week of November 16th to the 20th, we were just shy of 95%. November 23rd and 24th was the Monday, Tuesday during Thanksgiving week, and we're at 95.5%. And then November 30th through December 4th, we're at 95.6%. So we're hovering right at that 95% standpoint that we're having very meaningful, significant interactions with 95% of our students at least 2 times a week, from our classroom teachers to all of our students. So obviously the piece that we're really dialed in and focused on is that last 5% that we're not able to connect with. And I know there's a whole lot going on at the state level to assist us in tracking down where are those other 5%. Have they simply checked out and they're done with school this year? I know our administrators have made an awful lot of house visits with their social workers and counselors. Andy Carlson has been involved in several of them, because when we find out it's somebody that simply is choosing not to educate their kids this year, sometimes an officer and a cruiser pulling up with the principal and the social worker lends a little bit of seriousness to it. So anyway, we're doing an awful lot of things to try to connect with those 5% that have simply checked out for the year. So that's the two-way interaction report for this month.
Okay.
Next is the reconfirmation of the extended COVID learning plan. You'll see the sheet in there, that two-sided sheet that the state is requiring from us now. Find it here, and that is the new form. It talks a little bit about the delivery model, and then it talks about how are we going to instruct students at each of the different levels. We talk about what are we doing anything special for our special populations, and then those same two-way interaction rates are listed there at the end. And then this we will include the public comments from this meeting, and then this form gets uploaded to the Michigan Department of Education every month and goes on our website.
Okay, I think at this point, it would be helpful to have a motion on the recommended plan, and then a second, then we can certainly continue the discussion as warranted about the proposed plan.
I can make the motion.
Okay, Mike, go ahead.
I move that the Board of Education reconfirm the attached extended COVID-19 learning plan. Under this plan, the remote learning for grades developmental kindergarten through 12, which began November 16th, 2020, will continue through January 22nd, 2021. Students developmental kindergarten through 12th grade who selected the virtual learning option for the first semester will continue their online learning through Lincoln Learning or Edgenuity during this time period. In mid-January, the board will reevaluate the district's COVID-19 learning plan from January 26, 2021 forward to determine the best course of action at that time for students who choose the face-to-face learning option for second semester. As necessitated by the uncertainty caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and is required by state law.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay, discussion. Anybody want to discuss?
Yeah, from as I've been this whole time, I'm of two minds about this. I like Janine, I'm hearing a lot about the difficulties students are having. And it's almost to the point, and this is based on what I've been hearing from people, it's almost to the point where they're not as concerned about the education part of it. And I don't say that to mean that people don't care about the education part of it. I say that as a testament to the job that our district and our teachers and the leaders are doing in the remote area. Because of that, I think that the social and emotional part has really ticked up as far as people's concerned. And of course, that's also has a time component to it. 1 month, month and a half, kids may be okay, but another, a month after that, those numbers start to grow of children that are being affected by this. The other part of the coin that I'd like to speak about is communication. I know we talked back in July, I think it was, about maybe having someone whose job it was to put forth these communications, but I really think that's something that we need to reconsider, particularly in light of where we stand with having to make these decisions. A perfect example was the point that Marianne brought up and that Dave brought additional light to. that David brought additional light to. The fact that these discussions that we're having every month are mandated. Very few people know that. But one reason why very few people know that is we haven't done a really great job of communicating that on a large scale. I think there's a lot that goes into these decisions that people don't see, and there's no reason for them not to see the things. And you know, some people will never agree with whatever we decide to do, but a lot of people will understand better if the communication and the thought that goes into it, and the things that are mandated, the things that aren't mandated, all of that is communicated in a consistent way that they can digest. So, you know, as I said, I am literally of two minds about when we go back and in what mode and all of that. But that's one thing that I've been thinking about for a while, is figuring out a way to intelligently, and the words I'm going to say don't imply that we're not doing that to some level now, but you know, to consistently communicate to the largest number of people possible in a way that they can digest, that reflects the things that go into our decisions and the things that we don't have any input into. In other words, the things that are decided for us. I think that's something we really need to that's one area we really need to step up in, that will, like I said, hopefully help people to at least understand that we have considered, because I don't know how many emails I've seen with people asking, you know, what have you guys been reading, or what do you look at, or what's been considered, you know, for you to make these decisions. So from their standpoint, it does look like some of the decisions are relatively arbitrary, but again, the things that go into those decisions haven't been, at least to my knowledge, widely communicated, at least from the feedback that I'm hearing. So.
Eric, thanks for those comments. Anyone else want to offer any thoughts on the recommendation? No? All right. I didn't speak at length when Bruce offered his report. You know, I want to say that I want to go back to full-time face-to-face learning as quickly as possible, and I've been trying to push for such. But, you know, I think there's some real issues to consider in light of the number of cases, hospitalizations, and serious illness we're seeing in our community, as Bruce reported. When we went remote in early November, we were right on the verge of quarantines overwhelming our teachers and students. There's a serious lack of substitutes in the district. And I don't think it's just an issue of, you know, finding volunteers with the background searches that are required and the subject matter needed. The lack of substitutes is a real issue. And frankly, I just don't think it's safe to resume in-person learning right now. I'm very conscious of the families that chose face-to-face, you know, and want to go back to face-to-face. But I will point out that the original return to learn plan that we passed at the beginning of the school year premised face-to-face learning on being safe to do so. And if it's not safe to do so, then face-to-face learning is not to commence. You know, as I said, I want to go back full-time face-to-face at all levels. And I don't think we need 0 cases of COVID in our community to do it. And I don't believe that, you know, widespread vaccinations are a prerequisite. But I can't support returning face-to-face learning until the recommendation suggests the beginning of the second semester, given the pandemic numbers in our community. I mean, I just think it's not feasible. I'm very hopeful at the beginning of the second semester, we will be able to go full-time face-to-face, but there's no guarantee what's going to happen 6 weeks from now. And one of the things, in addition to what Eric pointed out, the issue, and Janine, the issues that many of our kids are facing with their social and emotional health, given the timing here, I also feel badly for the parents that are making a choice between and struggling with the choice between what to do for second semester, whether it's, you know, face-to-face or virtual, because now we've given this recommendation gives guidance as to what we're going to do through the first semester, but doesn't give guidance on the second semester. So our families are going to have to make a choice of going virtual or remaining face-to-face, not knowing what face-to-face means. And unfortunately, that's an issue of the timing that we look at, and you know, the nature of the pandemic. And it's a very difficult choice for a number of families, and I feel very badly about that. But other comments?
David, I have a question that occurred to me. Bruce, with staying virtual, and maybe I'm out of touch, but how does that impact finals at Heritage?
Well, that's been a big source of conversation between Brian and Jamie and I, and with the department chairs and the staff. The bottom line, to cut to the chase, is there will be some sort of a final, but we're allowing departments based on their different classes to have flexibility in how best to determine if the students have learned the material or not. In some cases, it will look a lot like a traditional final exam. In other cases, it may be a group project or a presentation the students give, or a paper that they write. It's gonna look a lot different than it has in the past from a flexibility standpoint. But we feel that there needs to be some sort of closure to that for two reasons, so that we can have the students through an exam type situation. But more importantly is so that we can get a handle on how well students are learning. If we use that as a tool that we can reflect on as a teaching instructional staff on how well is the content being delivered and how well are students learning, that's going to give us an awful lot of information as we head into second semester about any necessary changes we need to make. So our Edgenuity kids have exams built into their Edgenuity class, and that is, you're not able to override that to say, okay, there'll be no exams first semester because of the pandemic. And actually, many of our kids have worked ahead in their Edgenuity and have already taken their final exam, actually, because they've completed the course content. So if we extend remote learning through the end of the semester, we can continue our normal exam schedule that they use as if we were in school. So they had some concerns about how to make that work in a hybrid model, that blue-green. But if we're strictly remote, they said it'll be actually quite easy to use a very similar exam schedule. But again, the flexibility will be with what that exam might look like.
Yeah, so what I hear you saying is more formative than summative in terms of what the value of the assessment is. I understand. So I want to, that Duval has foregoings for semester exams. No, not official yet. Sorry. Yes. Let me rephrase that. Duval is considering foregoing first semester exams.
I'm gonna mute you soon.
Glad to provide guidance to all of our Duval families who might be joining us tonight.
Well, the thought was to use that time in their advanced classes to continue to introduce more material, and in their other classes to use as a fill-in, as an option for students to catch up. So that's at least an option that they were considering.
Another point too is what happens when you give a final exam, especially at the college level, because there would be access to the internet and all of those types of things. So it not only calls for a different type of schedule, it calls for a different type of question. And so the questions I had, they couldn't find those online because I made them self-reflective and that type of thing. So, tell me what you think. And so it added a little bit more effort to try to come up with a creative answer that might not be found out there in cyberland. But that was another whole challenge that's being addressed as well at the upper level.
So shifting gears to something David commented on, and I've heard about from parents, is vision for parents, and I'm maybe in the middle, maybe somewhat leaning towards focusing on safety, but I do think that parents that are facing that decision need to to keep in mind that we are, we're going to, as Bruce has said, we're going to try and have students in school if we can. So if you're, as a parent, uncomfortable with your kids being in school, then you probably really need to seriously consider virtual learning.
Jamie and I had a conversation the other day, and it would almost be helpful to reword that parent survey to say, instead of selecting face-to-face or virtual, select consistency versus flexibility, because the consistency of the virtual, the Edgenuity Lincoln Learning, every day what your kids are going to do from now till June 9th, 10th, whatever the last day of school is. If you're choosing face-to-face which may become a remote or a hybrid option, that can change in 24 hours. And I think that's been certainly a source of stress for a lot of our families. So in essence, it speaks a little bit to what you're sharing, Mike, in that, it depends on, how quickly your family can adjust and adapt. And as things are outside of our control many times, and they sometimes change on a dime, that's another way to look at that is, the consistency. Do you want consistency or flexibility?
Yeah, and I think along with that, the consistency of message is a big part of it, even to the point of, if possible, of sharing ranges, guidelines, something that what's the word? Leading indicators. I guess this is the biggest thing that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And sorry, I always put things in those terms, but at least
I totally agree with you, but if we had guessed at what those leading indicators were going to be back in July, I mean, we would absolutely have been out of school for most of the semester.
That's true.
Based on the way things have played out. So,
I mean,
it's out of control from a process control standpoint. It's such an out of control situation that it's very difficult to do.
And that's what's so difficult about it. I mean, and again, I hate to keep coming back to the communication thing, but that's what I think has folks frustrated with us as a board and us as a school district, is the fact that people talk about moving goalposts. There are no goalposts here. And it's just, it's hard for a parent to even, start to think about what we're going to do or what we're going to decide, because, like, to your point, Mike, what we would have, if we had to put a line in the sand back in July, a hard line that said, okay, if cases get above this number, we're out of school. If they're below this number, we're in school. I agree that number probably would have had us not in school at all this year or close to that. So, I mean, I completely respect that. I just think we have to come up with some kind of way of just communicating better with our parents and with our constituents. Even though, to make things not seem as random as they probably seem if you don't sit in the conversations that we sit in, and if you're not in the meetings that we're in. Because I completely understand some of the parents' frustration that it's, their parents think about their children and their families. And I'm not saying that parents are selfish or anything like that, but that's your job as a parent, to do what's best for your child. And that train of thought rightfully should not extend to a situation like the board, at least not on an individual family basis. There's a much wider array of situations and things and families that we have to consider as a board. So as a parent who's only thinking of their individual situation, individual child, if we can come up with some kind of way to, increase the communication, increase the understanding of what goes into our decisions, I think it would do better. It would do better for the district as a whole, just, not continuity. Just that family feel that we're looking for as a district, the understanding that, okay, maybe my situation is not the only one out there, and maybe there's some other things at play that I don't know about, that even though I may not agree with the decision, I kind of understand.
And the problem too, I think that is the fact that from a media perspective, we really don't have a newspaper anymore. So, they used to have their own table at the board board meeting. You don't hear much from radio. It's very rare that you hear consistently from TV. So maybe the point is that if we want to tell our story, that maybe we look at Education Works coming out perhaps in on a more consistent basis, because that way it'll go to everybody in the township. And because I can't think, not everybody's going to be on Twitter, not everybody's going to be on Facebook. We don't have the access of either weekly or perhaps daily newspaper. Television is a, toss up, and radio is a toss up. So if you want consistent messaging, it has to come out on a regular basis. And since we don't have a lot of forums available to us, because probably not a lot of people are going to be listening in here, but if there's a way that perhaps Education Works can be perhaps modified to come out a little bit more, and or make that website more applicable to what we're doing, and draw people in that way, because what you have now is rumor mill, and perhaps not everybody getting the same information at the same time. And I can remember we used to have boardograms that would go out even to all staff, because that's another group that needs to be kept informed on a regular basis as well. And that went out Tuesdays, just a simple sheet of paper when we actually used that stuff that was called paper. But there's got to be a way to reach people. Not everybody's electronically connected. And when I worked at the hospital, there were 3 different methods as a beginning point. If I wanted to get something out, I had to choose 3 different ways, because the third time they would probably get it. So it was perhaps voicemail, it was perhaps print, which you don't see as much anymore, because the internet was not that big back then. But that's what I think that we need to be looking at, is different ways to communicate to the different audiences and make sure that they all get the same amount of information, perhaps at the same time.
If you don't mind, it was funny when Eric said there are no goalposts. Every single one of us nodded our heads. And that's what we need our community to, I don't want to say all nod their heads, but to get a message. You're right, get the same message, even if it's a message that there are no goalposts, but for them to buy into that message as well. So it was just interesting, Eric, when you did that, I felt like a bobblehead, because there's no right answer right now, but that we need to communicate something, even if it is, we are still looking for that answer.
So very good discussion. If there's other comments, we can certainly hear them. If there's not, we've got a motion on the floor that's been seconded for our plan through the first semester. If we're ready to take that up, why don't we call the roll?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. I hit the wrong button. Let's go with Mike Colucci,
Yes,
Tony Duncan,
you're muted, Tony.
Yes.
Marianne Bird,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin. Do we hear that?
Yeah, say that again.
No.
Thank you. It was just garbled.
Where are we? Eric Smith? No. David Jaffe?
Yes.
And Jan Collison?
Yes.
Did I miss anybody? I was trying to check them off. I think I got everybody.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Couple more things on the board agenda for this evening. One is certification of the election results. Certainly a lot less perhaps exciting than what's going on at the national level, but still required nonetheless at the local level. Is there a motion?
I unmuted? Very good.
Who's doing it? I can do it.
Oh, go ahead, Jan.
I move that the Board of Education accept the results of the election held on November 3rd, 2020, as certified by the Saginaw County Board of Election canvassers. That Janine J. Coughlin, having received a significant number of votes, is elected board member. That Anthony J. Duncan, having received a significant number of votes, is elected board member. That David M. Jaffe, having received a significant number of votes, is elected board member. Janine J. Coughlin, Anthony J. Duncan, and David M. Jaffe are hereby declared to have been elected.
Support.
Any discussion?
Only that it should be sufficient.
Right.
Right.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Yep.
David Jaffe,
Yes.
Eric Smith, yes. Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Mike Lucci,
Yes,
Marianne Bird,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Dan Collison.
Yes.
And finally, on the agenda tonight, we have two cost savings revenue sharing proposals. The first one is for non-represented employees excluding central office administrators. Eric?
Okay. You're on mute again, Eric?
I can read it. Do you want me to take it? Oh,
I'm off mute, but
Go ahead, Eric.
I hereby move that non-represented employees be granted a one-time off-schedule payment based on contribution savings in proportion to total salary, resulting in a single lump sum payment to employees who worked in 2019, 2020, and who are still on the payroll using the same formula as provided by the STEOP collective bargaining agreement.
support.
Discussion? Bruce, can you just briefly summarize who would be included in this group?
You're on mute, Bruce.
You're on mute.
My disease is spreading. I guess that's a bad.
We're struggling tonight. I'm sorry. For instance, 15 paraprofessionals, our school nurse. We have community service organizers. We have some clerical people in the central office that are not represented by a union. And we have a gentleman in our IT department that is not represented by a union. So if you recall, our STA teachers, our clerical and instructional assistants, and our administrators that was already in their contract from negotiations. So they received their portion of the revenue sharing in the last paycheck. The folks that are not represented by a union and do not have a contract or a bargaining unit contract need to come to the board for approval before that can be paid.
This is Fair Pros also, correct?
Say that again, Janine?
Fair Pros?
They're part of this group.
Okay.
Yes, paraprofessionals.
Like you said that, okay.
Any further discussion? Okay.
Clarifying, Bruce, real quick. From a historical standpoint, me being new this time around on the board, when we have funds like this available, have we done this in the past, or is this something new for this year?
No, we've done this in the past. The last time was 2017.
Yep.
And this is if you think of it as between roughly 2009 to 2013, our employee groups took wage concessions to help us through those dark days of the budget as a way to keep the district open. The turnaround was in the event that we see good days ever again on the horizon, that we will share some of that revenue. Instead of adding it to fund balance, it gets formulated out using a very complicated mathematical formula with percentages and everything to the groups that helped get us over the hump back during those tough days.
I guess the only comment I had would be I just wish that when we looked at the revenue sharing part, that the people who are in certain positions don't, you know, I know it's based on contribution, I guess, but I'm not saying this very well. I just wish that certain groups would get perhaps a little bit more, like for example, a bus driver, or a parapro, or it's good to have the time and the circumstance to be able to say that we're able to offer anything. But I just think that there are so many people out there who are hurting. I just wish that there was a way to have that be a little bit more, a little higher. I don't think that came out very well, but I just, some groups receive this, and then some groups receive this. And it would be nice if it all came out of one big pot and it was equally divided. I know some people do, the roles are much different in terms of what they do on a regular basis. But I guess this pandemic is just really, it bothers me that so many people are struggling. I'm glad we can do something. I just wish it was a little bit more.
And that portion, you touched on it, that portion was based on the contribution, the percentage of contribution back during those days with the wage concessions.
Right.
So the groups that gave the most to help us get through the hump gets more of the piece of the pie, and groups that contributed very little, if anything, get much less. So yeah. I understand your point, though, about taking the pot and dividing it equally among all employees.
Any other comments? Okay, Eric, roll call, please.
Let's start with Eric Smith. Yes. Mike Lucci.
Yes.
Tony Duncan.
Yes.
Dan Collison.
Yes.
Marion Berg.
Yes.
Janine Coughlin.
Yes.
David Jaffe.
Yes. And I believe the final action item on our agenda tonight is a similar revenue sharing proposal for non-represented central office administrators. Is there a motion?
I'll take this. I hereby move that the non-represented central office administrators be granted a one-time off-schedule payment based on contributions to general fund savings in proportion to total salary, resulting in a single lump sum payment to the non-represented central office administrators who worked in the 2019-2020 in the same amount as the represented administrators.
Is there support? Mike? Okay. Discussion?
I'll ask the same question that either David or Mike, I can't remember who asked it last time, but can you clarify who's in this group?
There are 3 directors in our central office, Director of Curriculum, Director of Finance, and Director of Human Resources that have this in their contract.
Is there, I'll follow up on that. Is there a reason why the superintendent's not included in the list?
The superintendent has been included in the past. I asked Tony to remove my name from consideration from this, simply because I feel like our finances can be spent in more important ways. We have negotiations coming up with several different employee groups this winter. And so my feeling is let's spend it on something more important. And I was not here in 2012-13 to participate in this, so I asked Tony to remove my my name from the contribution.
Okay. So I'll ask the question. Never mind. I don't have any further questions. Anyone else?
Well, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Eric.
I was just going to say, I believe with the amount of work, and sometimes it's not just about amount of work, it's amount of good work, and you put in a lot of good work, particularly this year in the situation we're in. I believe you absolutely deserve the revenue sharing, and I forget the official name of it, and I apologize for that. Somebody can correct me. Having said that, I respect what you've done and what you've told Tony to do, and I will make no motion against that if that's what you want to do.
I agree with Eric. I think you should be included in this, Bruce. I think the amount of time and effort you have put in this year, you deserve it.
And I'll add to that I agree with both of you. Bruce, absolutely deserve it. Love your choice. I think sometimes money is one thing, right? But being able to kind of say something about our culture and where we find value and where we can put that money to better use, I think is a fantastic position to take. Appreciate that.
Who made the original motion? I don't remember.
I did.
Tony, was that you?
It was, yep.
Based on these comments, would you entertain a friendly amendment to that motion to say that Mr. Martin be treated in the same way as the other central office administrators for the purposes of this 2019-20 off-schedule payment?
I would.
Is there support for that amendment?
Support.
Okay. Further discussion?
Okay.
Janine?
So you would like to include him in that. I think we all agree that's what he deserves. But
Janine, I'm sorry to interrupt, Janine. I think you're coming through on Mary Ann's mic.
I am. So we were amending to include Bruce, correct?
Correct.
For his share of the money. Now, Bruce, are you comfortable with that? I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm not sure. I guess I want to know. I don't expect you to be comfortable with that. That's a loaded question.
Thank you.
So I guess because I'm a little bit on the struggle bus because I completely get where you're coming from, Bruce. But I agree that you deserve it. So I don't want to say no to giving to give it.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting. I certainly supported the motion, but
So
I may honor Bruce's request.
Right.
My comment to Bruce would be accept it graciously. And, if he wants to turn around and donate some of it to the Santa Township Community Schools Foundation or,
Mexico market.
yeah, something like that there are options available to him, but that, he shouldn't turn it down from that standpoint.
Further discussion? Okay, there's a motion on the table that's been amended and supported. Let's call roll.
I did it again.
Can you repeat the motion?
The motion was, as amended, says, moves that the non-represented central office administrator and Mr. Martin be granted a one-time off-schedule payment based on contribution to general fund savings in proportion to total salary, resulting in a single lump sum payment to the non-represented central office administrators and Mr. Martin, who worked in 2019-20 in the same amount as represented administrators.
Yeah, I think that has happened in the past, long ago, that they were not excluded. Right. So
Right. Right.
I don't, the word option, to use it, I think it just goes, I don't think we should have to donate. I think it's.
Yeah, it's his money. I'm saying that he can, once it's his money, it's up to him to choose what to do with it. Yeah, I agree with you, Marianne. I'm confident that we did this with the last time we did it.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric, roll call.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Marianne Bird,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin,
Yes.
Mike Colucci,
Yes.
David Jaffe,
Yes.
Eric Smith, yes.
We have one more item on the agenda, and that's a second opportunity for public comment. For those of you who have your sheets open, your spreadsheet, it looks like we have 4 new comments that have been added since last time. So if we could share those, for those of you who have the sheet open, we'll just go around if 4 people could take it. Michael, maybe start with you.
So remind me which
The last one we shared was number 7 from Miss Draft's on Wintergreen. So we would be on Autumn Marshall.
Okay, Autumn Marshall, when the governor and MSHAA allow sports to resume, are you going to allow our kids to play? Sports are very important to kids. Some of the kids have worked very hard to play the sport they love. To most, it's not just a sport. Hockey has literally been my senior's life since the age of 7. He has worked extremely hard on and off the ice. Taking another season from him would be detrimental.
Jan, do you have your spreadsheet up?
I do.
Okay.
The next one is from Kendra Booth, 4385 Lindale Street. And it says, please look at the science and data once again. There was little to no spread amongst our kids. The spread occurred outside of the school. Even now, schools are closed and numbers have increased. You gave us the option for face-to-face or virtual. If people have the fear, allow them to choose virtual or homeschool. We need our kids back in school. I have 2 very good students and they are angry and emotional and don't like school now. They want to be able to talk to their teachers, see their friends, take part in athletics and learn. I work for a school district in Midland and we are back with pre-K through 8. Why not Saginaw? Follow some other school district models, research before you decide.
Tony?
Yep. Next one's from Pamela Moratuzo, 4321 Buckbean Drive. First, thank you for the time and commitment to our students, staff, and community. I do have a few questions. First, have the board members visited the schools during all of the changing platforms, face-to-face, soft start, and now fully remote? Have you personally met with educators and all levels of students to understand their positions and progress, as well as their emotional and physical well-being? Not just those that want more rigor, but those that are at risk or struggling. Have you spoken with educators and students on their opinions and the workload of all parties involved? Again, thank you for your time.
Marianne, do you have your sheet up or you want us to move on?
Move on.
I can take Marianne.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead. Great.
I have children at all 3 school levels. Hybrid scheduling is not effective. The routine is non-existent, especially at White Pine with a block scheduling. Keep either the kids remote or let them go to school.
We have one more addition that just came in. Eric, want to share the last comment that just came in?
Sure. This comment is from Laura Fiore at 33 Slatestone Drive. The comment reads as follows. Unless STCS can provide 6-foot social distancing in schools, they should remain remote for a second semester in order to save lives. I would support at-risk kids being in the buildings in a social distance manner. The chaos of in-person, quarantine, sickness, teachers sick do not promote a good learning environment.
I would certainly thank everyone in our community who submitted comments tonight for us. Thank you. Thanks to everybody who helped read them tonight. Appreciate that. Appreciate everyone's time on the board and your thoughtfulness tonight as we work through the issues, and certainly wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. Everyone in our community the same. Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, and please everyone stay safe and be well. Thank you.
Can I make one last
We
comment?
need a motion to adjourn after Bruce makes a comment.
The next time you see our brand new finance director, not brand new, he's been here a year, Mike Waldy. Mike Waldy became a first-time grandfather in the night last night. Maeve Penelope Daniel was 5 pounds 14 inches long, 5 pounds 14 ounces and 18 inches long. And Mike has not slept, nor do I think he'll sleep because he's floating on air right now. So we're excited for Mike. He's tuned into the meeting tonight. Probably sound asleep as we speak, but we're excited for Mike and this new little granddaughter. So thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support? Mike, support. Excellent. Discussion? Eric, one more roll call.
All right, we'll go for the road. Eric Smith, yes. David Jaffe,
Yes.
Janine Coughlin, Mike Colucci,
Yes.
Tony Duncan,
Yes.
Jan Collison,
Yes.
Mary Ann Berg.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays.